The next key topic in the Weimar Republic is about the early challenges to the Republic from 1918 to 20, and particularly what problems faced the Republic in this time. So first of all, we'll be focusing on the reasons for the early unpopularity of the Republic. Secondly, the challenges from the left and right, and specifically the Spartacist Uprising and the Kapp Putsch. Why did the German people dislike the Weimar Republic? Now in this picture you can see a 1919 Austrian postcard showing a Jew stabbing a German army in the back with a dagger, and this was a popular view at the time. The German people blamed many people for the defeat in World War I, including the Jewish people, but most of all they blamed the civilians who had overthrown the Kaiser and set up the new Weimar Republic. This blame came to be known as the stab in the back, and a lot of historians have focused on whether the stab in the back myth was fair. So many people were blaming the Weimar Republic politicians for the loss of World War I and the overthrow of the Kaiser at the end of the war. They named them November criminals due to the fact the armistice ending World War I was signed on the 11th of November 1918, and they felt that they had stabbed the German nation in the back and should be treated like criminals. This is in modern days generally seen as unfair, as the German army was completely out of reserves, the German economy was collapsing, and it was actually the military leaders, particularly General Ludendorff, who asked the civilians to sue for peace. However, this myth remained prevalent in Germany and gained a lot of support with lots of groups. One of the areas where the Weimar politicians took the most blame was in signing the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles was the peace agreement signed between Germany and the Allies at the end of World War I, and was seen by many as something which made Germany weak due to its relatively harsh terms and the fact it was seen as unfair by many of the German people. Germany had signed the armistice based on a set of idealistic points called Wilson's 14 points after the American president, and the Treaty of Versailles did not reflect this, causing much resentment and anger in Germany. Its terms included blame. They had to take full blame for World War I, even though most modern historians would argue that there was many reasons and many countries to blame for its outbreak. This also led to large reparations. These were damages paid to the Allies to pay for the war, and these totaled £6.6 billion, a massive amount of money. Germany was very proud of its army, but the Treaty of Versailles limited it to 100,000 men, and other restrictions such as having no air force and a very limited navy. And lastly, Germany lost a lot of its territory, both overseas colonies, but actually some of the land which was traditionally part of Germany was given to other countries such as Poland. Now, this led many Germans to be very resentful of the Allies and other countries, and they blamed the Weimar politicians for signing this unfair treaty. Now, amongst this hatred and dislike for the Weimar Republic, there are two major challenges to their rule. Firstly, there was the threat from the left of the Spartacist Uprising. The German Communist Party, known as the Spartacists, after the Roman slave Spartacus, were led by Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, pictured here. Inspired by the Russian communists who had had a revolution in 1917, they wanted a Germany ruled by workers' councils. In 1919, they had a general strike and formed these workers' soviets in many towns, using rebel soldiers, sailors and workers to support them. The leader of the Weimar Republic, Friedrich Ebert, was left with a major problem, as he had no real power or support as the leader of the unpopular Weimar Republic to stop these Soviets seizing power. So to deal with this threat, Ebert relied on the help of the Freikorps. These were groups of anti-communist ex-soldiers who had been decommissioned at the end of World War I, which meant that they were no longer officially working for the government or the army, but many had held on to their weapons and had military training. This led to bitter fighting in the streets and the murder of the Spartacist leaders as the Freikorps attacked and tried to disband the Spartacists. So the Freikorps prevailed over the Spartacists and the Weimar Republic survived. The Communists, however, also seized power in the district of Bavaria and started agitation in the industrial area, the Ruhr, in 1920, but Ebert again was able to use the Freikorps to crush them. Now, the use of the Freikorps distanced Ebert from the socialist parties, but gained him respect from many Germans who saw him as a stronger and tougher leader because of it. However, the challenges to the Weimar Republic did not end there, and there was soon a threat from the right, known as the Kapp Putsch. So the Weimar Republic was very concerned about the power of these Freikorps, who had saved them from the Spartacist Uprising, but were largely out of their control. In February 1920, Ebert tried to disband 2 Freikorps brigades because he was concerned about their power. However, they were supported by Wolfgang Kapp, a monarchist, so someone who believed in the Kaiser, and leader of the Fatherland Party in the Reichstag, supported these Freikorps in refusing to disband, and in fact encouraged them to lead an armed challenge to the Weimar government, and in German this is known as a putsch. So why did the Kapp Putsch fail? 12,000 soldiers actually joined the putsch, forcing the government to flee, and Wolfgang Kapp named himself as Chancellor of Germany. But the putsch failed, as key figures, like General Ludendorff pictured here, did not support it. The left-wing parties organised a strike against it, and many civil servants, bankers and other workers refused to recognise Kapp's government. So ultimately, after 4 days, Kapp had to flee to Sweden, and the Weimar government was able to return. So in summary, during this period of 1918 to 20, the German people were very angry with the Weimar politicians, as they blamed them both for losing the war and signing the hated Treaty of Versailles. They referred to the politicians who signed the armistice as the November criminals and said that they had stabbed Germany in the back. The Spartacists, the left-wing Communist Party, tried to overthrow the Weimar government in 1919, but were defeated by decommissioned soldiers known as the Freikorps. However, the Freikorps then tried to seize power for themselves in March 1920 in the Kapp Putsch led by Wolfgang Kapp, but had little support from key figures and were defeated by a strike. However, overall there was clearly little support for the Weimar government, who survived only by relying on others, either in the Spartacist Uprising relying on the Freikorps, or during the Kapp Putsch having to rely on the people going on strike to stop the putsch from taking power.